Hello everyone, this is Varsha. Welcome to Programming Knowledge. So in this tutorial, we will understand some of the WebElement commands. We will understand the different types of WebElement commands with their syntax. Also, we will implement these commands. Then we will understand the difference between findelements and findelement. Also, we will understand the difference between the isDisplayed, isEnabled and isSelected method and click and submit method. So let's get started. First, we need to understand what are WebElements command. To understand what is WebElement command, we need to understand what is WebElement. Anything that is present on the web page is called as a WebElement. For example, the text boxes, the buttons, the drop-down menu, the radio buttons, etc. Everything is called a WebElement. To interact these WebElement, we have the different types of locators like the ID, name, class, the XPath. I have explained that in the previous tutorial. The WebElement commands are the list of actions that can be performed on various WebElements. These are called as the WebElement commands. Now here you can see these list of WebElement commands, that is the click, clear, the find element, the find elements, the get attribute, the get CSS value. Also, I have prepared a document. In this document, I have mentioned the commands, the description, their syntax and what parameter it accepts and what it returns. Also, you can get this document in the PDF format. I have attached it to the drive. I will give this link in the description box. Also, I will give the direct link to download as a PDF. So these are the commands like the clear, click, the submit, the send keys and the element visibility methods, and also these get text, the get tag name, the get CSS, the get attribute, get size and get location. So these are the different WebElement commands, and we will be understanding these commands today through a set of test cases. This is the test case that we are going to implement today, and this is the website that we are going to automate today. So first, open your IntelliJ IDEA IDE. So I have created this Java class Selenium tutorials 13 under package com.selenium, and the first test case says that I have to launch the Chrome browser. For that, I have written system.setProperty, in which I have given the key, that is the webdriver.chrome.driver, and the value is the executable file of the Chrome driver. Next is the WebDriver driver is equal to new Chrome driver. So these two commands will launch the Chrome browser. Our next test case is that we have to open the URL. So I'll be using driver.get. I'll insert the URL that I want to navigate to. This is the URL. So I'll copy this, paste it over here, and then I will maximize the page. For that, I will write driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. Now let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated and it's maximized. So my next test case is that I have to enter the username and password. So this is username and this is the password. I will inspect this element. I'll simply click on inspect, and here you can see we have the ID, name, attribute. So I'll use the ID attribute. I'll write driver dot find element by dot ID, and I will mention the ID over here. And here I'll be using the send keys command. Now the send keys command accepts the character sequence as a parameter and it returns nothing. So the character sequence that I want to send over here is the username. The username is given over here, so I'll simply just copy this. I will paste it over here. And this is the character that I want to send to username. Next, I'll write driver dot find element by dot ID. The next element is the password, so I'll inspect this, the ID. I'll copy it over here, and the operation that I want to perform over here is that I want to send some character sequence to the password field. So here I will write the password. The password is given over here. So I'll simply copy this and paste it over here. So this is the first WebElement command that we learned, is the send key. So here you can see we have send keys. Now this send keys stimulates the typing into an element which may set its value. This is the syntax. This is the parameter, that is the character sequence it accepts as a parameter, and it returns nothing. So let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized, and the username and the password is sent. So our next test case says that we have to clear the username and the password that we have entered. For that we'll use the clear command. Okay. So I will simply write driver dot find element by dot id dot, I'll use the clear command. It accepts nothing as a parameter. It also returns nothing. Next, I want to clear the password, so I'll write driver dot find element by dot id dot clear command. Now let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized, and my username password is entered. So here you can see the username is cleared and the password is also cleared. Okay. So this is the next WebElement command that we have learned. So this is the next WebElement command that we have learned, is the clear command. This will clear the value. This is the syntax, and it accepts nothing as a parameter, also returns nothing. Okay. So our next test case says that we have to submit the login button. So here comes the difference between the click command and the submit command. These two commands. For that I have an example. Let's understand that with the help of the example first, and then we'll perform the test case. To understand the difference between the submit and the click, this is the page that I have made. There are two divisions present over here. One is the outside form tag, and the second division is the inside form tag. In the outside form tag, there are two buttons, as well as in the inside form tag there are two buttons, that is the submit button and the button. The first one is of type submit. Here you can see this is input type submit, and this is of type button. Okay, so when I click on this shows that the submit button outside the form tag, and this is a button outside the form tag. Similarly, when I click on this shows that this is a button inside a form tag, and this is a button inside the form tag. So now I created this page just to understand the difference between the click and the submit method. Okay, so I have already created a Java class. I have named it as difference between submit and click. I have opened the Chrome browser. I navigated to this page. I maximize it. The first operation that we're going to perform is the click operation, and then we will perform the submit operation, and then we will see the difference between the two. So the first operation is the click operation, and I inspected the outside form tag division first. Okay, in which I click the submit button and the button. So let's see, let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched. Submit button is clicked. Then I navigated back. Then the button is clicked, and it is navigated. So my click method works for submit button and the button which is outside the form tag. Now let's see whether it works for the inside the form tag or not. So I have written this code for the inside the form tag, in which I have inspected the submit button and the button through ID locator, and I have also written driver.navigate.back command just to navigate back to the page. And I have also written thread.sleep, which shows the time so that it slows down the execution and we get to know what is actually happening. So let's execute this. Here my Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated to this page. It's maximized. So this is the button inside a form tag. The submit button is clicked. It's navigated back. So the button is also clicked, and it's navigated back. So here we can conclude that the click method is having no restrictions. That is, you can use click method to click on any button. If it is of element of type button or of type submit, the click will work for both. Okay, whether it is outside the form tag or whether it is inside the form tag. Now let's see the submit. To understand the submit method, this is the first division that we are having, the outside form tag. So we will inspect this element first and let's see what the output is. So I have written driver.findElement and by.id. I have specified the id and the submit method, and then I have written thread.sleep to understand the execution. So now let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, it's maximized. And here you can see there is an exception over here. There is an exception of JavaScript execution, the JavaScript error unable to find owing document. Okay, so this shows that the submit button will not work for a submit type of element outside the form tag. Now let's see if it works for the button type of element or not. So I have written over here driver.findElement by.id, and this is the id, and I will use the submit method over here, and I have given thread.sleep just to see its execution so that it can pause for some time. And let's execute this. My Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, it's maximized. Okay, so again here you can see we have an error which says that it is unable to find owing document. So this means that the submit function is not applicable for the buttons that is outside the form tag. Okay, now let's see, is it applicable for buttons that is inside the form tag? So here I have written driver.findElement by.id, and the id I have specified over here, and the submit command, and I have also written driver.navigate.back command. Now let's see whether it is executing or not, or whether it shows an error. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, and here it is. This is a button inside a form tag, and then it is navigated back. Okay, so our submit function is working inside the form tag for the submit button. But what about the element of type button? So I have written this driver.findElement by.id, and this is the id that I have given over here, and the submit command, and also thread.sleep so that we can see the execution. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, and this is the button inside the form tag. So here you can see we had the division that is the inside the form tag division, in which I had two buttons, that is submit button and the button, right? So I could automate the submit button as well as this button also. So the submit function is applicable only for buttons that is inside the form tag. So this means that there are some restrictions for the submit method and there is no restrictions for the click method. So let's see the difference between the two. So this is the difference. For the click method, you can use the click method to click on any button, whereas the submit function is applicable only for buttons that is inside the form tag. There is no restrictions for click button, but there are some restrictions for submit button, that is, it is only applicable if the button is inside the form tag. Now this means that when there is no restriction for click buttons, this means that the element type is button or it is of type submit, the click method will work for both. But whereas the element type of submit or button, it should be inside the form tag, then only the submit method will work. Okay, now if the button is inside the form tag or the button is outside the form tag, the click will work. But if the button is outside the form tag, that means the submit will not work, as we have seen in the example before. So now moving on to the next test case, that is the submit a login button. It's to submit a login form, right? So here let's inspect this element. Now this element is of type submit and it is under the form tag, so we can use the submit command. So I'll simply write driver.findElement by .xpath and I will paste it over here. Okay, so here I have written driver.findElement, and this is the XBAR that is present, and the operation that I want to perform is I want to submit it. So now let's execute this. My Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. My username is entered, password is entered, username is cleared, password is cleared, and here you can see the login button is clicked, and here the warning is given, the username cannot be empty. So our next test case is the get text. Now this method will fetch the visible inner text of the element, and it accepts nothing as a parameter, but it returns a string value. For example, suppose this element, here you can see this link. If I inspect this, here you can see we have the forget your password text written over here. So get text method will retrieve this forget your password. Okay, it will fetch the inner visible text that is present over here. There is a text present, right? Forget your password. So it will print forget your password through get text method. So what I'll do is I'll write driver.findElement by.link text, and the text that is present over here is this. So I'll simply copy this and I'll write get text. Here I'll give some string value and I will print it. Let me execute this. My Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's executed. Username, password is entered. The username is cleared. The password is cleared. The submit button is clicked. And here you can see we have the text is forget your password. Okay. Then the next test case says that get location. Now the get location method, this method locates the location of the element on the page, and it accepts nothing as a parameter, but it returns a point object. Now here I will write driver.findElement by.id. I will store this in a WebElement type of variable. So I'll use the point class over here, and then I will write element.getLocation. Next I will print it plus point.x y coordinates point.y. So let me execute this. My Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized. My username and password is entered. My username is cleared. My password is cleared. So my login button is clicked. And here you can see the text is forget your password, x coordinates and the y coordinates. So through get location we can locate the location of the element on the page. On this page I was locating this element, that is the username. That's what I found through get location method. Next test case says that we have to find the size, that is the get size. So here the get size method fetches the width and the height of the element. Now over here I will inspect this element only. I want to know the width and the height of this element. For that I will be using the get size method. Now remember, the get size method is different and the size method is different. They both are different. Okay. Now this get size method, it accepts nothing as a parameter, but it returns the dimension object. So similarly I'll write the code for this. I'll write driver.findElement by.id, and I will store this in a WebElement type of variable. I will name it as element1 is equal to driver.findElement by.id. Okay, next I will write dimensions. Dimension is equal to element1 dot get size. Next I will write s out, and I'll write height is, and I'll write dimension, that is the dim dot height, and I will write him dot So let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, it's maximized, and my username password is entered. My username is cleared, password is cleared, the login button is clicked, and here you can see the height and the width that is given of this element, that is the username element. So the next test case says that we have to find the get tag name. Now the get tag name method, it gets the tag name of the element. For example, suppose if I inspect this element, this is the element that I'm inspecting, element that is there. So the tag name is input, so it will retrieve the input. This is the tag name that is of this element, right? So the tag name of this element is retrieved, that is the input. So let's see, I'll simply write driver dot find element by dot id, and I will place the id over here. I'll write get tag name, and I'll print this value. So I'll store it in a string type of variable because it returns string. Next I will print it. Let's execute this. So my Chrome browser is launched, it's navigated, the username password is entered, the username is cleared, the password is cleared, and my login button is clicked, and here you can see we have the tag name, that is the input. So the next test case is that we have to print the number of links present on the page. Now I have given this test case to understand the difference between the find element and the find elements. So what I'll do is I'll write driver dot find elements by dot tag name. I'll use the tag name, and to find the links on the page, the tag that we use is the A tag, right? The anchor tag. So I'll write A, and I will store this in a list. I'll use the web element because I have to inspect the web element over here. The different types of web element, that is, I want to know the list of links that is present over here, right? So I'm using the list, and the element that I want to inspect is the web element, and I will give a variable name. I'll name it as links is equal to driver dot find elements by dot tag name, and then I will print this. That is, I will print the number of links that is present over here. To print the number of links that is present over here, I'll use the size method. Remember, the get size method is different, whereas the size method is different. The size method retrieves the number of elements in the list, whereas over here the get size method, this method that you see, this is the get size method. This shows the width and the height of the element. My Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated, it's maximized, the username and the password is entered, the username is cleared, the password is cleared, and the login button is clicked. Okay, here you can see we have the number that is present over here, that is 6. There are 6 links present on this page. Okay, now here you can see we have used the find elements method over here. Okay, now the main difference between the find element and the find elements is that the find element returns the first matching web element if the multiple web elements are discovered by the locator. Okay, and here the find elements returns the list of multiple matching web elements. In find element, it will throw no such element exception if the element is not found, whereas in find elements it returns the empty list. It will return the empty list if no element is matching over here. Find element detects a unique web element, whereas the find elements, it returns a collection of matching elements. We have seen the example also over here. So this is the main difference between the find element and the find elements. Now the next test case is that we have to check if the login button is displayed or not. Now here we are using the element visibility methods. Okay, we have 3 types of element visibility method. One is the isDisplayed, one is isEnabled, and one is isSelected. Now the isSelected method is mostly used for radio buttons and checkboxes, whereas the isDisplayed and isEnabled method is used for all types of web elements that is present on the web page. All these methods, it accepts nothing as a parameter, but they return Boolean values, that is the true and the false. The isDisplayed method, this method determines if an element is currently displayed or not. For example, if the test case is that check if the login button is displayed, that is this login button, it is displayed on this page, right, on this web page. So when I write driver.findelement.id and if I locate it by ID and when I write is displayed, it will show true because this element is displayed on the web page. Now let's see if I write. Now if I write is displayed and if I save it in a boolean type of a variable because it returns true or false. So if I write boolean1 is equal to driver.findelement by.xpath and this is isDisplayed and I will print it over here. So over here the output will be true because the element is displayed on the web page, right? So the output will be true. So let's execute this. My Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. My username and password is entered. My username is erased and the password is also cleared and the login is clicked. And here you can see we have the value that is true. Why it is true? Because this login button is displayed on the web page. So next test case says that we have to check if the login button is enabled or not. Now here I have written a boolean variable that I have given as the bool2 and I have written driver.findelement and the xpath and I have used the isEnabled method. Now this method determines if the element is currently enabled or not. Here you can see this element is enabled, right? If I click on this, I can see over here it is enabled. So let's see, the output will be true because this element is enabled. My Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated. It's maximized and the username and the password is entered. The username is cleared. The password is cleared. The login is clicked. We close this and here you can see we have the true value given over here. Next, let's check if the login button. Now this isSelected method is basically used for the radio buttons and the check boxes mostly. It determines whether the element is selected or not. So this operation is only applied to input elements such as checkboxes, select option, the radio buttons to return that it is true or false. If the radio button is selected, it will return true. If it is not, then it will return false. Okay, and it accepts nothing as a parameter but it returns a boolean value. So in this case, this element is not a radio button or a checkbox or something, and it is not selected also. So obviously it will return false. So if I write driver.findelement by.xpath and is selected and if I print this variable, now let's see, the output will be false because this element is not selected and it is not a radio button or a checkbox. So my Chrome browser is launched. It's navigated and the username and password is entered. The username is cleared, the password is also cleared and the login is clicked. And here you can see the output is false. Okay, so here these were the test cases that we execute today. We launched the Chrome browser, we opened the URL, we entered the username and the password, we cleared it. So here we use the clear operation, here we use the send keys method, and here we understood the difference between the click and the submit method. Then we use the get text method, the get location, the get size and the get tag name. Then we understood the difference between the find element and the find elements. Then we use the isDisplayed method, isEnabled method and isSelected method. So this way we have covered all the WebElement commands. So let us just understand the difference between all these elements. I have explained the difference between the click and the submit. So for the click we have no restrictions, whereas for submit method we have the restrictions. That is, the method is only applicable if the buttons are inside the form tag. Okay, so this is the basic difference between the click and the submit. And if the button is inside the form tag or the button is outside the form tag, the click method will work. But if the button is outside the form tag, that means the submit will not work. We have seen the example also. Next is the find element and the find elements. Now the find element returns the first matching web element if the multiple web elements are discovered by the locator. Now if the locator discovers multiple web elements, like suppose the name given over here is the column 1, and there are multiple column 1s present on the web page, okay, and it has multiple web elements are discovered over there, so it will return the first matching web element. Whereas in case of find elements, it will return a list of multiple matching web elements, and it throws no exception. It is just that it returns an empty list. Whereas in find element, it throws no such element exception if the element is not found. Detects a unique web element, whereas the driver.findElements, it returns the collection of matching elements. This is the example. We have also seen the example of find elements. Next, what is the difference between the isDisplayed, isEnabled and isSelected? Now the isDisplayed method is used to verify whether an element is on site present or not. As I've shown, the login button was present on the web page, so it displayed true. So this method is used to verify whether an element is present on the site or not. isEnabled is used to confirm whether an element is enabled or disabled, whereas isSelected is used to confirm whether an element is selected or not. isSelected is applicable to any web object or any web element that is present on the web page, and it returns true or false. Whereas isEnabled is also applicable to all the web object that is present on the web page, and it returns true and false. Now the isSelected method is only applicable for checkbox, so the drop down menus and the radio buttons on the site, and it will return true or false. So if the radio button is selected, it will show true, and if it is not selected, it will show false. So this is the basic difference between the isDisplayed, isEnabled and the isSelected method. So far we have covered the WebElement commands. We have understood the difference also between the click and the submit, the find element and the find elements. Also isDisplayed, isEnabled and isSelected. I have also given the PDF sheet. I will give all the links in the description so that you can refer it. Also the source code link will be given in the description, so you can check out the source code as well. So for now, this is what we have studied today. In the next tutorial, we will understand how to handle multiple windows through Selenium WebDriver. So this is all for now. Please like, share and subscribe this video. Thank you.